I'm a little envious of the sun behind you. I'm not going to lie.
It wasn't like that this morning. We were pretty lucky today, but I'm sure you got a pretty good view where you're at too there. But for everybody out there that's watching, we are honored to have somebody who's really starting a movement out there and doing a great job. Through Alison Donaghey's #MyPart movement, she's encouraging the world to divide their belief systems around victims and victimizers. She is helping the world move towards a place of true empowerment by helping people see the true value of everyone and placing themselves as part of humanity rather than being divided. God knows we need that. Alison is leading people to understand that with the right mindset and a bit of critical thinking, anything is possible. So we're honored to have Alison from the Domino Thinking podcast joining out here today on Petcha Pod Pitch. What's going on?
Oh, not much. I'm just like listening to you and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. I think it's always so fascinating hearing other people talk about what we do, even though, we know what we do. I love it. It's cool.
It is. It's always good to see how people react, the energy and what really their passion or what their focus is, and seeing how it's, because everybody's capable of changing the world. It's just one day at a time with little actions, right?
Yeah. 1% a day change in the right direction will make a whole different impact at the end of the year, at the end of your life, end of the decade, whatever. And we think we have to make this change where we become a different person overnight, and that's just not true. It's a 1% shift. That's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Domino Thinking, because it is a great podcast. I love listening to it. What inspired you to start the podcast? Because you've got a little bit different background than a lot of people that have gotten into their podcast, right?
Yeah. Well, this is my second podcast. My first one was called Natural Born Speakers, and I'd given a speech at an event and people were like, oh my God, you have to do more of this. You need a podcast so you can get your message out. And so the suggestion then was to become more aware of how the whole speaking industry works and who else is out there speaking and that sort of thing. But I really found that my true passion was really trying to get people to think. Like, if you do nothing else, just think about what you think about. And I end every podcast I have is, if you don't question what you believe, what's the point of believing in it? Mm-hmm. And we are zombies going through our life, and we attach ourselves to these beliefs and ideas, and we don't even know where they came from or if they're even ours.
That is so true. That is so true. Has there been an episode or a guest that you've talked with on your podcast that's really kind of made you think differently about a specific subject?
Oh my God, yeah. Like,
some question, but what stands out the most?
I've had lots, but this one in particular changed my life. Like, I am not the same person I was before him. And I'd given a speech called My Part, where I talked about how we have to be careful about what movements we attach ourselves to, because everything's a double-edged sword. And I talked about how I was sexually assaulted in high school. And this guy reached out and said, I was raped by my wife and put in the hospital for 3 days. And then I got laughed out of the police station when I tried to report it. And at some point during this conversation, I realized that I had adopted the belief of toxic feminism, and that I hadn't really seen men as complete beings with their own experiences. I just always thought of men should just be more like women or something. I don't even know what I thought, but it definitely wasn't mine, and I didn't even know I had it. And so I spent 1.5 years interviewing men and women on men's rights and feminism so I could try to understand it better. And it changed everything for me. It changed the conversations I'm having. It changed the way I do my work. It's changed everything.
Wow. Yeah, I can remember that episode and the posts you were posting on social media, questioning this and asking people to think about it, because it's such I hate to say a role reversal, but kind of a negative role reversal in many ways, right?
Yeah. And until we start to actually understand and see each other, we can't coexist to our optimum. And the reality is we are not hardwired to see each other. We're hardwired to have our own needs met. So this whole talk about narcissism, we're all narcissists. Like, we all care about ourselves first, no matter how you package it. And so I like to bring awareness around that. I like to bring awareness about where's our worthiness coming from. And I offer a program on that, because every single choice or action we take stems from our relationship to our worth and trying to get more worthiness.
I love that. Definitely love it. What has been the biggest surprise from your podcast outside of your guests and thinking? Anything that just kind of is like, I couldn't believe this happened, or something that just kind of blew your mind?
Oh gosh. I think it really I'm amazed at how much it opens the doors for conversation. Like it almost gives like the celebrity status. And so people are willing to talk about things differently and more openly, I think, than if they didn't know I had a podcast, right? I think the conversations get deeper faster.
I can understand that. We had a previous guy on talking about how it strokes your people who we interview their ego a little bit to open up maybe a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, it comes down to seeing people, right? Like it's just such a gift I feel that I've been given having people on my show, that I get to see so many people, and not just, oh, I saw that person over there, I know them, but to actually see what their experiences are and connect on that different level. It is just, it's so cool. Mm-hmm. I did not expect that. Because I thought I'd been having good conversations prior to my podcast. Like I thought I got to know people, but it's just deeper.
Yeah, it definitely can take deeper things versus 10, 15 minutes, like you're meeting somebody, have a good conversation at a party or over dinner or something. Like it can go a whole different level when you got a microphone or a video camera in front of somebody and you're taking that question maybe one step further than you would a little bit more so, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, it gives you both parties permission to not start with the weather. Right?
Weather's great here.
Apart from us. Yeah. Right?
Now, for those that are watching on here that are new to it or looking to start one, what's the best bit of advice that you would give them into, getting things rocking and rolling for them?
Niche and pick, because I've sort of floated around with it, and the more niche I become, the easier it is to connect. Although there are great podcasts out there that are just random, but I think the most important thing is figure out what you're super excited about, and whether you are super niched or not, ideal to be, but like you're so niched. If you are super excited and passionate about what it is you're talking about, don't try to tell them or assume what they want. Do what you want, and your people will find you.
So that leads to the next question. Do you go into a lot of your interviews and guests with the questions scripted, or do you go through like 2 or 3 and then just throw it out the window?
I have no questions. Apart from, hi, how are you? What's your bio? And I've had guests where we agree to talk about something, but the conversation gets so interesting, we actually never even talk about that. And the value has been huge. So flexibility, I think, from my perspective, is really important. Now, I've been on other people's podcasts, and it's question. You have like a minute to answer it, and then your next question, and whoa, you got to be on your game to be interviewed that way. I'm going to be doing one called, and you might be a really great guest for this too, Funky Thinkers. Have I introduced you to Jonathan?
No.
Oh, yeah, I'll introduce you, because he does this thing it's on a board, and you have to pick questions, so you have no idea what's coming at you. And so I'm going to be on his podcast pretty quick. I've been on one of his previous ones as well. But it's getting that creative thing, right? Like, how do you bring you out the best?
That's such a great point there, because I've been on podcasts where it's the same questions they ask everybody, and it's just they're not listening. They're rushing to ask the question versus truly listening. And that's what I love so much about what you do with Domino Thinking. You're literally listening before you ask a question. And that's, some people get so rushed to ask questions, they miss the whole point. They miss the whole avenue we can go down, the wild tangents that sometimes goes, but sometimes those wild tangents are the best and so unique versus the same old, same thing we shout out every time. You want to be fresh, you want to be original out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And authentic, right? I think it's on those ones that I feel more organic on, I feel more seen. And when I feel more seen, I'm happy to go deeper and be more generous or more vulnerable or whatever the situation calls for. If I am just a number on somebody's podcast and they're streaming questions at me, and don't get me wrong, some people do it really well and there is value in it. It's just not how I would want to do my podcast. So get clear on how you want to do yours.
Really great point there. Get clear and be original, be authentic is a couple great things. Now,
and get started.
Hit the record button and hit the upload button. I was talking to somebody the night, And I was getting my hair cut when he said, "Oh yeah, I got a podcast." Like, right, what's it called? "Oh, I've never uploaded it." I'm like, "How many episodes have you done?" 25. I'm like, "Why aren't you posting it?"
Yeah.
You know? "Oh, I'm scared to." I'm like, just get it out there. I mean, if it's controversial, sometimes it's a great thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And some of them are going to just be crappy shows. And like, you know, we're not all perfect all the time. So if you're waiting for perfection, you're not going to do anything. So yeah, hit record and upload.
Right. What's your goal in the next 12 to 36 months with your podcast and where you're kind of going with it?
I would really, well, I'm thinking of starting another podcast. So, because it's an addiction, it's like tattoos. You can't just get one. So I want to develop that one. There's 2 in the works, but for Domino Thinking, I just really want to, get deeper with guests. I want to just get more of a presence and just be able to touch more people and have more of these really great conversations, really, because I think that's how we change the world.
One conversation at a time, and listening, not being so busy shouting. I think you and I've shared some stuff on there, how the society is so just yelling at each other, not really listening. And we've seen some interesting conversations happen on role reversals and things like that. Like, wait a second, you're not really listening to my response. You're just yelling at me now, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was on Sean Douglas's show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we had this totally random show. It was so much fun. We talked about Trump, and we talked about the Women's March with the little hat things, and we talked about the military and guns in Canada and the US, and it was just such an interesting conversation. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for those things to happen.
And it's gotten a lot easier to record and get stuff out there than it ever was years ago.
Yeah, there's no excuses.
That's it. There's no excuses. I love that. I love it. Alison, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, contact you to find out more about you?
Yeah, website, dominothinking.com. Everything's there. Contact everything. So feel free. And I do answer all of my emails. It might take me a little while, but I do get to them all because it matters, right? So feel free to reach out.
She does answer. She takes time in answering. No chatbot automation thing going on with that.
Well, I just have a bot, but that's not the one that answers my emails.
Where are you? What events are you going to this year in podcasts? I know you've attended some different ones in the past. Do you have anything on the calendar you're looking forward to attending?
I don't, actually. I've done the New Media Summit 3 times, and I think that's, I'm taking a break from that, which is kind of nice too. It's a great event, great people. Yep. I met you, right? So I don't know. I tend to not make plans too far into the future because I never quite know what's going to happen. But something always shows up. Exactly.
Well, Alison, thanks so much for coming on, playing big with us here at the Pitch a Pod Pitch today. All righty.
Well, thanks for this and all the creative stuff you do. I love the way you bring podcasting out there. So you're my hero. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've learned a lot from you. Thank you so much, Alison. All right. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye.